from door-to-door cookware salesperson to building a very successful company selling to the ultra-wealthy, luxurious goods. Our guest has an amazing story to tell. Let's listen. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
Total privilege for me to have my friend Jim Dahlgren, co-founder of Dahlgren Duck and Associates. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. After I got through the traffic, I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
I thought we'd have pastry, but
So you'll learn quickly Jim is in the hospitality business. And so we'll receive all your get better moments. Is the water satisfactory?
it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Was it the right temperature?
It was.
What is Dahlgren Duck and Associates?
What is it?
Yes. What's the business?
The way I describe it to people, it was a high-end luxury distribution company.
Okay. All right.
Most people, when they hear that, they don't understand what that means. So
Exactly. So
What does that mean?
so you're like everybody else.
I am exactly like everybody else.
What you have to realize in the world of wealth, there are many types of projects that need what we call operating equipment. It could be airplanes, yachts, palaces, homes, whatever. And our job was to find out where we could make and purchase for resupply for those projects. We worked through interior designers, architects, project managers. So we worked on, at the time, the largest projects in the world, from heads of state to the wealthiest people. There's two tiers of wealth most people don't understand. There's a Fortune 500 list. That's pretty wealthy people.
Yep.
But there's a whole nother list of the people that have trillions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. Where's that list?
That list is
A little harder to
it's
identify?
over in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Russia, it's not really hard to identify.
It's not.
No.
Yeah.
And I think prime example is when Dubai was in trouble. Dubai was created by Abu Dhabi, the kingdom, and when they had the financial crisis, the emir, the sheikh, wrote a $1 trillion check and bailed them out. Now, even Elon Musk can't write a $1 trillion check.
When was this? When was that?
Oh, that would have been, what, 08?
08,
when everything
07, 08,
crashed.
yeah,
When
okay.
everything crashed.
That crash.
Yeah.
All right. I want to come back.
You
to
want
that.
some more history? I can go back.
I 100% do. But I want to start with your history. Where are you from, and what was childhood like?
Oh gosh,
What are some memories?
That was a long
back
time.
that
That was a
far?
long
You going
time
back
ago.
that far?
You're
Dude,
really
Jeez.
challenging.
It was
him
in the
this morning.
1900s. I know that much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my parents came over in, the station wagon. No, was it a log cabin? No, I can't remember. But I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, born in Oklahoma. Went to school.
I don't
University
recall
of
that. What town in Oklahoma were you born in?
Chickasha.
No
I left
way.
at 6 months. I don't
Yeah.
have a lot of memory, but
Yeah.
my dad was a World War II veteran. He's a major in the engineering corps, spent 4 years in the Philippines. And so he was tough and hardened, as was my mom. So I grew up in a really loving but very tough environment. And I went to the University of Missouri. I put myself through school. I was on a football scholarship to Northeast Missouri State.
What town is that in?
And that's in Kirksville.
Okay.
And to avoid spring workouts, because they didn't have spring practice back in '68, I asked the coach if I could go out for the golf team. And he looked at me and he said, "Sure, go ahead." And not thinking that I might be able to play golf. And I made the golf team. So I am one of the few players that you, Hudson, will ever know that played college football and golf.
Now, I had this conversation with my son, Mac, who He says I played college football. I didn't play. I was on the team. I never actually entered a real game for a play. So I don't think I can claim I played college football.
I mean,
did you actually play it down in a game on the football
I
team?
received a scholarship, and I was on the team, and I left after 1 year. So, I mean, I think one of the best stories about my college career, and this is really heartfelt. It was midway through the season, and as freshmen, we really wanted to dress for the varsity. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
We're talking 68 now.
Absolutely.
Were you born in 68?
66.
Yeah, so you were kind of young. So a really good friend of mine on the team and I got called to the head coach's office. Now, our head coach at the time was Marv Braden. This shows you the depth of my football prowess. Does that name ring a bell?
Well, is it related to Tom Brady? He's the only other Brady I know.
No. You missed it. Marv Braden. Marv Braden.
No.
He went on to be the head coach at SMU and then coached at San Diego in the NFL. So we're not talking about, a guy that was, of course, he was early in his career. He called us in. One of the actual assistant coaches called us in, and I just knew he was going to tell us we were suiting. Had a good week of practice. It was pretty.
What position?
I was, believe it or not, an end in the center.
Okay.
But really mostly end.
Yep.
And we stood there, and he said, "Okay, Dahlgren, you're going to be working the north lot. And it's supposed to rain, so we've got slickers and flashlights for you guys.
Incredible.
That you got to get right, I want you there at 5:30. I said, okay. That means I'm not suiting? He goes, oh, you're suiting for the parking lot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my football career.
Did you negotiate with him there? Did you try to negotiate with him?
No, I knew I was, and it poured rain, and I was out there, and I was, I had one of those cones,
Yeah.
and I said, oh, this is a highlight. I'll always remember this,
I've got to get better at golf.
So anyway, that was fun. But anyway, I transferred to University of Missouri. I got a degree in psychology and a minor in pre-med.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to go to med school.
Yeah.
And I'd sit in the fraternity house dining hall. I'd sit by guys that were seniors, and they were accepted to medical school. And they were 4.0 students. I was not a 4.0. I was one of those 2.8 students. And they said, "Boy, you could have trouble, Jim, getting into med school with a 2.8." And so that was kind of where my career for med school ended. But I did go into the armed forces. I was in the Air Force. I made it as a staff sergeant when I got out. I spent a year active duty right at the end of the Vietnam War. And I was a medic with a fighter wing out at Carswell Air Force Base. And I really enjoyed my tour of duty.
What are lessons from a loving but strict, tough home? How did that shape you as a man, as a dad, as a husband?
Well, I think being around my father, who witnessed horrific things, he never really cast a lot of light on those times in the Philippines. But he casts light on what it's like to be tough and have a spirit of never giving up and always be there for your fellow man. So those things really stuck with me. And I always try to be a team player and be there for the times that I needed to be there.
That sounds like the Jim Dahlgren I know. Resilient and a team player and taking care of your fellow man. Both of y'all have been a member of Civic Club here, Salesmanship Club. And so it doesn't surprise me. It's fun to hear, and it's powerful to hear you go to those two things, because I think that absolutely represents who you are. So where you graduate, Missouri, and what are first jobs? What's first job?
Well, two things happened in my working early life.
Okay.
My dad did teach me how to work hard. I remember he offered me my first job in a construction lot where they had piles of wood with nails in them where they used them for reinforcing concrete. And I was about 15 or 16, and he would drop me off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he'd say, now I want you to try to get as many of those wood pieces clean of nails, and I want you to stack them up, and the guy that is hiring you is going to come by around 4:30. And I remember with crowbar and handle in hand, I'd go out there, and I'd think, this has got to be the worst job in the world. And I did that for about, 6 or 8 weeks, and it taught me a lot of self-discipline. I didn't realize it, but there was really only one person to answer to in that job, and that was me.
Yeah.
And I knew that guy was going to come by, and he was going to look at the stack, and if it was a little light, he's going to say, well, you must have not worked quite so hard today. And then from that job, the next summer, the school actually got me a job at a fan belt factory called Daco. I don't know if you knew how fan belts are made, but it's cooked rubber, difficult process, very
This is a
tough,
factory in Springfield,
tough.
obviously.
Yes, a factory in Springfield. And I worked the night shift with these men and women that were, 35 or 40, and they looked like they were 60.
Yeah.
And
Like literally overnight shift or like
no, I worked
6 to 12?
No, I worked the 11 to 7 shift.
Left. Oh.
I
And how
worked
old
the
were you?
11. I was 18 probably.
So is this the summer before or after senior year?
Well, this would have been, I went to Kirksville, probably my freshman year.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
probably my freshman year.
Wow.
So I spent the summer there, and it was hot, it was dirty, and I was working with people that had to work. These are not other college kids that are just trying to get by. And the message to self out of that experience was, boy, I don't want to do this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So that became an application for me to remember how tough it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next job, my brother called me, and he was down in Dallas.
Your brother older or younger?
Oh, he's 14 years older, and he worked for a direct sales company called Salad Master. And he said, why don't you come down and sell some cookware door to door? And my first question to him was, well, what are you going to pay me? And he said, I'll pay you what you're worth. I said, no.
Great answer. Great answer.
I said, didn't understand that answer. I said, no, I'm putting myself through college, by the way. I told my dad when I received a scholarship, my parents didn't have any money. And I said, I'll put myself through school. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out.
Yep.
And I said, look, I got a number on the wall I got to make to pay my tuition and go to school. And he said, oh, you get there. And I said, okay, well, what's my guarantee? He said, I'll guarantee you'll make what you're worth. And he just kept coming back with this. And I was getting irritated. I said, well, I'm not going to come. I got a good construction job lined up, a big company. And he said, you'll never know what you really can do till you're out in the firing line. And I thought about it, and I said, okay, all right, challenge accepted. I'll go down there and try it. So as soon as school was out, I hustled down to Dallas in a car that broke down on the way. It was an old F-85 Oldsmobile. You guys probably don't remember that model.
I don't remember
It had
that.
about 150,000 miles on it. And I just barely rolled into Dallas. And so he gave me about 4 days of training, which was just watching him. And then said, okay, here's a part of Fort Worth. Just go over there and start knocking on doors and see how it goes. And to be honest with you, I did exactly as I was told. And I worked 8 hours a day knocking on doors. And what I learned was that it's not people are saying no to me. They were saying no to an opportunity to own something that they could be very proud of. And I took that as I went about my business. And I didn't make a sale. I was in day 9, I think, and time was running out. And if I'm not going to make any money, I got to head back to Springfield. And that Saturday, I hit a bevy of business. This just was amazing. And that summer, I set an all-time record in the remaining 8 weeks, because I only was in Dallas 10 weeks, for the most sales by a college student in the history of the company, which was about 30 years old at the time. So the next year I came back and brought a bunch of fraternity brothers, and we set a bunch of national records in sales. And the next thing I knew, I was making more money than I ever dreamed about. As a matter of fact, the first summer where I only really worked 8 weeks, I made $3,000 gross commissions in 8 weeks. Put that in perspective, 1968, a full-time teacher made $3,200 a year.
Wow.
So I came back. My dad was very proud of me, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go buy a car. Now, my dad had never owned a new car in his life. He never even dreamt of owning a new car. And he thought I was insane.
Yeah.
He said, well, I'll help you. Let's go find a really good used car. I said, no, Dad, I'm going to buy a new car. And he goes, really? How are you going to pay for it? I said, they told me down in Dallas, if I put 50% down, the bank will give me a rollover note for 12 months, and I'll pay it off into the next summer. And we went down. I bought a yellow Grand Prix. My dad could not believe
yellow.
But you know, the whole thing was I was around all the salespeople that you can imagine, and they all were driving new cars. And I thought, this is what you got to have to be successful.
Yeah. This is the tool.
So that was the start of a really great time. There's a lot more stories I could share with you, but those made huge impacts for me.
So was there a switch that flipped from week 2 to week 3? Or, the first 2 weeks, no sales, and then all of a sudden it just took off? Like, was there some unlocking?
No, it was just really, you had to, there was a kind of a percentage like anybody that does cold calling.
Sure.
The more you make, eventually you're going to get numbers fold your way.
Yeah.
And I remember after I started Dahlgren International with my wife, jump forward, I got a call from Rollins Industries in Atlanta, and they wanted to fly me to Atlanta to interview for the head of Orkin Pest Control.
Oh, yeah.
They wanted a national sales manager, and I was 28.
Wow.
28. And the other two guys that came in for that day of testing and everything, they were like 50, 55. Mm-hmm. So I met with the family, and I remember sitting with them because it was more, I decided to really, I thought the job would be cool, I was pretty bulletproof at that point. I didn't think there was much anything I couldn't do, being very young and naive. And so they said, why me for this role? Because it seems like I'd be a little young, a little lack of experience. And he said, we recruit direct sales closers.
Yep.
And we've never seen anybody that can close like you can on direct sales. So anyway, that led me down there. That opened up another venue for me to think about, my future and what I really wanted to do, which led me all the way.
So did you take that job?
I was not offered the job.
Okay.
But I spent 6 hours with an industrial psychologist. 6 hours of battery tests. Do you give those kind of tests for 6 hours to people you hire?
Yeah, no.
No. It was really, I guess, done a lot back then.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting with the psychologist, and he gave me, I think I still have the report. And he said, man, you tested out in some areas off the chart. He said, you're just green in a couple other areas. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get the offer. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And I came back, and I'll jump ahead now. Again, I got 1,000 stories, but let's jump ahead. So how did I get to doing what I ended up doing?
Yep.
So the company, I was going to be a stockbroker. I got called by, do you remember, if they talk, they listen, the old...
E.F. Hutton.
E.F. Hutton. So the guy that ran the Fort Worth E.F. Hutton office called me once again because of, selling. And he said, Dahlgren, I got your name. I want you to come over, buy you lunch. And he was dying to hire me. And I thought, well, this would be a pretty cool job. I like Fort Worth. This would be pretty good. Went back to Dr. Phyllis. She said, she's a speech therapist. She said, yeah, we'll go over there. That'd be good. And so I went in to see the people at Salad Master, where I was a dealer for 2 years out of college. And they had a new owner. And he called me in. He said, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I don't want you to take the job. I want you to come in internally and run the sales organization for other things other than cookware, because we sold accessories to the cookware in our program. And it was china, crystal, silver, and things. And he said, I'm going to hire you a mentor, and I want you to travel the world, and I want you to go find specially labeled custom items for us that we can private label, basically. And that sounded pretty cool, because I had not really traveled a lot, and I kind of had a little wanderlust feeling, and I thought, so I went back to talk to Phyllis. I said, what about this job? And so I took that job, and on one of my trips, I started out, we traveled a lot in the early days to the Far East because of the dollar's strength against the yen and whatnot. And met a lot of great friends, and I found a few factories there I worked with. And then the yen exploded and the dollar got really weak, and all of a sudden those things were really expensive. So my mentor, who actually ended up doing a lot with Tiffany's, we shifted our traveling to Europe. And in one of those factories, one day, there was an area where they were giving us a tour. It was a very famous china factory, and they had this little area where these craftsmen were working. And I said, what's that program over there? And that's really what started what I did for almost 40 years. He said, well, that's our bespoke area where we make items for heads of state, very, very special environments. And I said, well, you do any of that in the United States? And they said, no, because the United States doesn't have royalty. They don't really have much demand. I said, I bet you I could find some people interested in buying your product. I said, would you support me with samples and whatnot if I could go? Absolutely. So what I did then, I started thinking about, well, who and where are these items be sold? And one of the first stops was at Love Field. I knew there was a couple of modifying companies over there. Somehow,
what's a modifying company?
Those are companies that refit big airplanes, not little airplanes, big airplanes.
For generally
private use.
Private use.
So I went over there and ran across a guy that said, yeah, well, we just go to the department store and buy our stuff. I said, I got a better way. So that all started, and I went back to the company I was working for, Salamaster. I said, I'd like to moonlight. I'll split with you. Everything I sell on the side, I get half, you get half. And that was the real eye-opener, because I kind of did that for a year.
So they accepted that deal?
Oh, they said, yeah, sure.
Okay.
You're going to keep working.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
do whatever you pay
Yep.
us. Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
They knew I'd probably end up selling plenty.
Right.
And I did the totals up the first year. I paid my whole salary back to them in the split earnings. So you think they were happy with me at that company? And I was traveling, doing, running sales meetings and everything. So I went in and saw the president of the company, and I said, Harold, I might have been born late, might have been born in the dark, but I see the light. He goes, what? I said, I got to go. Yeah. I said, this is a real opportunity. And he said, no, you can't go. Sign a consulting agreement. They begged me to sign for another 6 months. And so I kind of did that. And then Phyllis and we hung out a shingle called Dahlgren International.
And what year is that?
That would have been, again, 79. I think 79 that I left. So graduated in 71. So now this is 8 years of spun. The dates may be a little mixed up. But and then I did that and began to grow a nice piece of business. And what really was interesting for anybody that watches the silly thing that I'm doing is that the disciplines that I told you about, pulling nails and, working in that factory.
Yep.
I had, we lived over in Preston Hollow. I found this house, and I had an office in there, and we had a telex machine. Do y'all remember what a telex machine is?
Kinda.
A
pre-fax machine.
That was a pre-fax machine.
Yeah, all YouTube.
So that was a machine that was like it had a piece of tape, and you could type in a message, and then over the lines it would send the same to another telex machine. Yep. We had one of those in our closet, and it would go off in the middle of the night because we were working with factories all over the world, and we kept growing the business out of our house, and we actually, I started I would get up every morning. This is the point of the story. I'd get up every morning and have breakfast, be with Phyllis. I think we might have had one child at the time, or one and a second on the way. And she was doing everything for me. She was raising the family. She's doing this. And then I was, not the most organized, so she had a big role. And I told her that we needed I said, there's a space in the attic. I can build out an office or a space up there, and we can bring another person in to help take some load off of you. So she agreed to that. So that's what we did. And and then when I said, I think there's additional space she said, you're out. You're out. We're not. This is too much. This is
not
way
the
too
first
much.
time, not the last time you pushed your luck with Philly.
You're out. You go find a spot.
This is my home.
Yeah, and then, one of the guys I got to really know at Salad Master was John Amon, who was a good buddy and great friend. And John was in the real estate business at the time, and he wanted to teach me the real estate business. So we were going to get an office together, and I was going to run my business, and he was going to do that. And then he got another big offer to go do something else. So now I had this office space, and I had my good friend, Alan Duck, who had just moved back from Europe after spending a few years in Europe working with his father-in-law. And he had a business where he could use an office. So I said, why don't we take this space together and we can share, receptionists and whatnot. Yeah. So we did, and we took that space. And about, I don't know, I can't remember, this would have been about 1982, so that's... this 82, we'd been in space maybe 6 months, and I just walked in. I said, man, I got more business than I know what to do with. Would you like to have half of whatever I got? I got Tiger by the tail. And he said, sure, let's give it a whirl. So 35 years later, 2014, we sold the business.
Okay. Let me back up a little bit. Where do you and Philly meet? I need to know the time, the place.
Oh, come on.
Where do y'all meet?
We met at the University of Missouri. She was at Stevens College, and it was my senior year. We met in 1970, December 70.
Okay. And
she transferred when I moved down.
Where'd you meet
she
her?
Followed.
Did you meet her at a football game?
Just,
Did you meet her
just
bar?
at a party.
Yeah.
And when she moved down, when I moved down, after I graduated, she transferred, went to UTA for a semester, and then finished and got her degree at SMU.
Okay. How many kids y'all have?
3.
3? Yep. Boys, girls, what do you got?
2 boys and a girl.
Yep.
Soon
How many
to
grandkids?
Soon to be 46, 44, and 42.
How many grandkids?
4.
How's that season for you and Philly?
It's great. We're having a great time with them.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you sold the business in 2014, what had it grown to? Like what, you talked about where you started and how it got going initially, but what then happened over that period of 30 years or so? Where did you end up?
We
in 14?
organically had a really nice small. It was not a big business. It was a very niche business. I remember when I got in the process of selling it, I went and met with a really nice buddy who is well known in the city, and has a bevy of companies. And I went to him and I said, "Counsel me. I want to sell the business." And he said, Jimbo, he said, you got a great business with a lot of sizzle, and there's going to be a lot of people that be interested in it. But he said, your business is not any good without you and Alan being involved, because it's really a key man type business. Mm-hmm. So, and I will interject that about 15 years prior, about 2000, we had sold. We had one partner in the history of the company, and that was Edsel Ford of the Ford Motor Company. And that was an unsolicited offer that he came in and sent some people down. He had a reason to buy it because he wanted a luxury distribution purchasing company. He thought we fit the bill. So we were really honored to have him our partner for 7 years. And then we eventually bought his shares out because it didn't fit for what he really wanted. But we became good friends. We had quarterly meetings, and I traveled with Edsel, and he's a really great guy. So we just set out organically. I talked to a few brokers to sell the business, and it just looked like it was such a specialized business. I think I'll try to just sell it myself. And made calls on people, and one thing led to another, and we eventually got a couple of offers.
I think I want to kind of dig in there a little bit, Jim, because so many of our listeners, viewers are, going to be in a similar key person type business. What was the counsel that some of the friends and advisors gave you? How did you and Alan start to maybe put some people and or processes in place from the moment you kind of decided to sell? Did you sell it in 6 months, 2 years? Walk us through that kind of season of the business, because so many of our listeners are business owners, and they're wondering, how do I max out? How do I get the most benefit? Maybe the business is too centered on one person.
How'd you ultimately reduce the key man?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if we did.
Yeah.
We again, when you're selling product and creating product for the richest people in the world, a lot of people just get enamored with, Edsel Ford once told me, he said, he'd come to a quarterly meeting, he said, tell me about your latest projects. I said, Edsel, let's look at some numbers. Let me show you how we're doing. He said, I don't care. It's immaterial. I want to hear about your projects. I said, come on. Why? He said, oh, you're the best cocktail party material on the planet,
Yep.
And so, because who else that he runs with can walk in and say, you ought to hear about this plane they're doing for the Sultan of Brunei, or, whatever the project might be.
Right.
So that's really what we had. A core business. We had a small EBITDA. We had no debt.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's really what you have to, any business you have to have. You want to maximize the value, but any owner is going to probably think it's worth a lot more than it really is.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to keep knocking on the doors till you find somebody that sees half the value that you may see. So that's what I would tell them to do. And we couldn't take our eye off the ball while the process was going on. So we had to keep working daily, but keep the phones hot with the prospects.
How long was that process?
It probably took us 6-9 months to find a couple of parties interested.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did hire a great guy, Ed Pierce, that came in and really kind of he's an attorney, and he was used to mergers and acquisitions. So we put him on the team, and he kind of checked out and kind of sent us leads. He'd say, we ought to talk to these people or not. What do you think? So we did all that, and that's kind of how we got it done.
Yep. You've addressed a couple of things, but what are some coaching pro tips you would give someone considering selling their business today?
Well, I think Alan and I didn't really ever discuss an exit plan. It's really funny because I think the best part was when I called him. I said, "Hey, let's go in the conference room." And I said, "What's your exit plan?" He said, "Well, I don't have one." And I said, "I think we should have an exit plan. We're getting older, and everything." And so I said, our exit plan was, let me go see if I can find somebody who'll buy the company. So that's if you have that kind of mentality. But look, there's lots of money out there looking for a home. You can have, a widget company, and somebody's got money.
Uh-huh.
If your widget company looks good, somebody will probably buy it. But you just, do your due diligence and let the world know. Kind of like a watch. Want to sell your watch, you got to let the world know you want to sell your watch.
What's one of the biggest, as a business owner, what's one of those days, phone calls, what's one of the biggest struggles where you, Alan, and the team, you had to show and prove your resilience?
I'm sure we had some of those days, but I don't remember. My days that I remember are the days that we got calls from out of the blue, Ed McMahon called and he wanted some mugs for his yacht. And, the time a designer that we'd been working on a huge job for a head of state called and said, I got an order, but the order's 10 times what we thought it was going to be. Those are the days that I remember that were like, it was a dream. I mean, people that had my job to hunt out the world's most incredible, the fineries of life.
Yep.
What you have to realize with our business, which I think is the fascinating part, is that you can make $10 billion doing your widget manufacturing, and you know nothing about how certain things are made. I was on YouTube the other day, and I pulled up about how something was, I can't even remember, it was machinery in the fields of farming, and the machines that, can harvest carrots and turnips. And I'm watching this, I'm going, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was kind of what our business was all about. It was insane. And I would search out craftsmen and artisans that could do things that, that somebody, 4 people sitting in a shop over in Italy making something because they have 1 or 2 customers that keep them alive. And I would go in there and really beg them to supply me. Mm-hmm. I said, I think I've got some people I could help. Mm-hmm. Do you have capacity? Because that was always the other thing, is finding people that could make things, but make it in a capacity that I could
Correct. You need some scale. It wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't need large scale, but I needed, and I had deadlines.
Yeah.
One of my most fascinating. There's a small porcelain manufacturer that was operating in New York City in Manhattan. Think about that. This guy had kilns and was making in Midtown custom china for boardrooms. And awesome. I came across him, and I took him to lunch because I was fascinated
Absolutely.
by how that guy for 30 years could be in Midtown Manhattan making these small runs, And I did everything I could for a number of years to send him orders. Because, it was kind of a little bit of a struggle for him,
Yeah.
It was him and 2 other guys.
Yeah.
And you'll be happy to note he's doing well. He finally, they condemned his building because they were going to tear it down. So he moved out of the city, and he's moved his factory, and he's doing great.
It's incredible. What about a Rolls Royce? You said something about a Rolls Royce story.
Oh, well, that was a good buddy. There's things in life that you strive for, achieve for. And I had an old fraternity brother that was really active in the bond business back in the late 90s, and very successful, made a lot of money. And I'm having dinner with him one night down in Florida, and he had just bought a brand new, he had Ferraris and all these cars, and he bought this fancy Rolls Royce I know nothing about. And he looked at me and he said, Jim, the deal that I realized when I bought that car is, as I drove it off the lot, I realized it's just another car to get from point A to point B. And it's all about ego. And he said, my ego been upside down. And he had a big life-changing moment when he bought that Rolls Royce, which I thought was very impactful. Mm-hmm. And so I lived and grew a business in that world of the ultimate egos, to get the call that somebody's building a, $150 million yacht, and they want to talk to me about the items to put on them. And we would sit down with owners that, again, were hugely successful doing whatever. And my first question would be, well, how do you plan to treat the yacht? How do you plan to live on the yacht? Is it a beach house? Is it something where it's going to be are you going to use it for charter? And a lot of these people had thoughts, but they'd never really kind of delved down deep. And so, that, airplanes and everything, it's a different world.
What are some of your observations over 40 years working with the wealthiest people in the world? What are some of your life principles, ahas? What are some of those takeaways?
Well, you have to remember, I worked very little with end users. My projects were always done with project managers, architects, designers, the fabricators, the shipyard.
Yeah.
And so I think the few that I worked with who were really nice people, they could, well, I have to say, in all the years I did it, I only ones that I really remember were people that were fairly kind. Some of the international clients, I was flown to India on a really big project by a family. I never forget, the office called me. It was the richest family in India. And they said, Mrs. So-and-so has requested you to come over for 2 days of meetings for this project. And I said, oh, delightful. I'd love to meet her. I've heard all about her. And I said, I'll send you my details so you can get my airplane ticket and everything. And they said, and there's dead silence on the phone. And the guy said, well, we don't do that. I said, what don't you do? He said, we're not going to buy you a ticket. You have the privilege to come and meet Mrs. So-and-so. And I said, well, would you please go back kindly, politely, and tell her I really would love to come meet her, but she also has the privilege of paying for my expenses. And this guy wanted to start arguing. I said, no, look, that's the deal. I said, get back to her. Or just tell her, when she's in the States, I'm happy to meet with her in the States, whatever. But it's your job now, sir, to go back and tell the boss that I'm not coming. Well, I got a call back in about 10 minutes, said, all your expenses will be paid, and please come over here and everything. So, so some people, will try to take advantage of you. And you just have to decide how hard you want to push or how hard you want to be pushed.
It's always a fine line. I mean, that's a really
because there's a big order coming potentially.
Maybe
potentially.
Not always.
Yeah,
but big orders were always great, especially when they got the final payment in.
Yeah.
As you guys led it internally, what were, as a business owner, how was the operation of the business? What were the struggles? What were the successes? What are some, as you're talking to a 30-year-old, mid-30, whatever, who's growing a business, 5 people, 20 people, 100 people, what are some lessons that you learned through growing a business?
Well, again, we had a small staff. I think the most we were ever up to was probably 20 people, 25 maybe. I don't know. But we kept it small. We were a Judeo-Christian company. We told people if they were going to be offended by us praying over our lunches or whatever, that, we didn't want to offend them. I don't know if any of this you could even do today, but that's how we ran the business. And we told every employee, it was faith, family, and business. And we told them, if you don't have those in order, then you're not going to be a good employee. And if you're unhappy at work, if you're unhappy at home, how can you be, a good employee? So we had a very family, nobody ever left, We were pretty easygoing, and but it was great.
Yep.
Do you, looking back, to the sale and exit, and kind of, is there anything you would have done differently now in hindsight?
I think how and who, and there's a lot. No question. But that was 10 and a half years ago. So
right.
Lots of things changed in 10 and a half years.
What are those lessons? Is there, Jim, I mean, sometimes, are there, as you reflect, are there process things that could have been done differently? Again, this is that conversation we had. Sometimes the good, bad, and the ugly, and that's what's going to potentially help a lot of people listening. Are there process things are there questions you and Alan would have asked differently? How could you maybe guide somebody going through this?
I mean, there's all sorts of things that we could have generated and put processes into place, and but you gotta kind of remember where I came from and how my life evolved, and my family. I traveled all over the world with my family. We took them every time we had something, So my whole thing in life was to not so much about earning money or earning more money. I wanted to make every sale I could, don't get me wrong. But it was really about an experience of life. And so the business was the vehicle. And I didn't treat it as, true north, you big machine here that cranks out billions of dollars, and
Big machine.
Billions.
Yeah.
and
We manage billions.
Yeah.
We don't earn billions.
So, but
Yeah.
I think it's again, we had such kind of a niche business that to put a lot of programs in place. We trafficked off into other areas that not just the private luxury, what we call the private luxury. We ended up supplying when the home share clubs, exclusive resorts and Inspirados, when those all started, we saw a great niche for management and to help them. And so we were key partners, strategic partners with all those companies, and are today. So I think that the guys that own the company they have a lot of opportunities in front of them. There's lots of stuff going on. So they're doing well.
I've known you a long time. You're maybe the most gifted, certainly one of the most gifted in understanding the art of relationships. Coach Scott and I up, what are principles of what'd you learn? Salad master going door to door, working with Sultan of Brunei's, the people all over the world. What are some principles of great relationship building?
Okay, let me think. This is getting kind of deep now, Dougie boy.
Dougie boy.
Yeah.
That means you've gone.
That tells you how long he's known you.
Yes. Yes.
Look, it's building relationships is about caring. It's about sincerity. It's about looking people in the eyes. It's like looking at your 3-year-old grandson that, is having a problem, and you set him down and you kind of grab his shoulders and you say, now look at me. And he'll focus in on my eyes and I focus in on his eyes. And there's a depth of a 3-year-old child that can look into your soul. I think once you realize that people want to be connected with, I'm kind of silly and goofy sometimes, and some people like that, some don't. And so I learned a long time ago in my career that not everybody's going to like me. And I just have to do the best I can, but I can't be hurt or offended by the ones that don't like me. I received a letter. I sold a set of cookware back when I was a college student. And I got a letter from a school teacher that wanted to return it, which I let her return it. And she, in the letter, which I thought I had done a nice job in the sale, she said, how do you sleep with yourself at night? How do you go out and sell this product door to door, knowing that most people don't need? She kind of did this litany of tearing me apart, And I got that. And I remember I had this crushed feeling, and I showed it to Phyllis, and I said, "Man, am I a bad person? Did I do something that Turned out she had a boyfriend that helped her write the letter because he didn't want her to have the cookware. And so I certainly called her up and I said, boy, I got your letter. I'm so sorry. Happy to return it. When I went to pick up the cookware and took her check back for the deposit or whatever, she came to the door and I had hat in hand, so sorry that she felt the way she felt. insincere. And she wouldn't look at me.
Mm.
She was embarrassed to look at me because I believe, as I found out later through a friend of hers that I'd also sold cookware to, she said that she was embarrassed that she wrote that letter based on what the boyfriend had told her to write. So that was a big lesson for me to realize that everybody in life, you're going to wake up, you're going to go meet with somebody, and he's going to go, Hudson, I don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like your gray hair. It looks too good or something. I don't know. And you just got to realize that, you can't please everybody. You may want to. I've always been a big pleaser. Phyllis will tell you, my wife, that maybe is a drawback because I want to please too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Jimbo, absolutely. And I'm not going to let you off that easy. One of the principles I heard there, which...
Do I get a door prize when this is all over?
Yeah, you will. You will. Maybe a sleeve of golf balls. They probably won't live up to your standard. They're only Pro V1s. I'm not sure they're the latest Pro V, whatever it is. Is there a Pro
hurtful.
V12?
That's hurtful.
Is there a Pro V12 out there now?
I play the AVX, but that's okay. Go ahead.
See, I'm going to try to do a good job of hospitality and realize you just said AVX. So I heard sincerity. And I think you're spot on. Why is that difficult for so many people to build relationships and be sincere? From your...
it's probably, this is now we're delving back to my psychology degree. In reading people and body language and things, sincerity is something that maybe a lot of people don't practice. I mean, I think everybody has a sincerity bone in their body, but we live in such an artificial world, and it's so fast paced, and there's so much going on that a lot of personal traits don't get developed. I watch my soon to be 13-year-old grandson. He got a phone, and we fight him all the time. Put the phone down, and he's not on social media yet, but it's just the attack on their attention and the stuff that can be thrown at them is. I didn't have that growing up. You got to remember, when I started this business, the internet didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There weren't cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
So, I came through a period where, and I look back at those days, I love technology. I love all the conveniences that it brings to you. But there was a time that it would help you develop more as a person when you weren't bombarded with all that the stuff in the world.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. What else you got for Jimbo?
That's good.
Jim,
I'm available to teach sales meetings.
Okay, that is exactly.
I take you up on that.
If we had 3 salespeople right now, what is your 2-minute synopsis on teaching sales?
I don't think I'd have 2 minutes for you, but
what do you got?
Salespeople have to be resilient. They have to be able to understand their product, but then they also have to be able to not be hurt when things don't go their way. I think today, kids go off to school, they get their degrees, they get some training, they get a few years in the field, and I don't think they really are. If you take the really top ones, they're probably really good at reading people, not just knowing their product, but they're really good at understanding people more than anything. That's one thing that's never changed in the history of mankind. Battlefields of throughout the ages, people got to read their enemy and read their opponents, and that goes on. But that'd be the one thing I'd say.
I reflect back to what you say you learned almost maybe in the first 2 weeks of Salad Master door to door. And I want, maybe we'll wrap up on this point. I want you to try to say that again, how you said it. She wasn't rejecting you. She was rejecting the opportunity to own a wonderful product in the cookware. Am I in the ballpark?
Yeah, I think you pretty much
Great.
nailed it. Yeah, you just couldn't take the door closing personally,
Right.
and that's in any sale. You can't. I had the real sale. I went out every day, knocking on doors, getting ready to tell people of something they needed when they got up that morning. They didn't realize they needed it. Now, is there a harder sale that you can think of than that one?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So when the people would come to the door and I'd say, "Have you gotten your gift from Salad Master yet?" They'd go, "What gift?" I say, "Yes, I have a gift if you have a few minutes." They'd say, "Not interested," and slam the door. What they're saying is not negative to me. They just
Correct.
didn't want their gift yet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you took that attitude and you'd go door to door to door, the other thing that pulling the nails out of boards taught me, I can remember a few days where I would have some early appointments. It wasn't always just knocking on the door. People would give you referrals, you'd call, get an appointment, so on. And I'd have some early appointments, and I'd go in and, great call. My mom has Salad Master. Yes, I want to buy a set. And I have 2 or 3. I'd make 2 or 3 sales. It'd be noon. Every other guy in the direct sales business, when they had 3 sales by noon,
They're done.
they're off to the pool. They're off to the golf course. They're off. My mentality, and it was that way my whole life. When I sold the head of state and I got the phone down, I got the order, my next deal was, I want to get another one today. And so I worked double hard the afternoon so that I got 3 early. I think that's the part that you got to be able to drive into salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that's missing.
And what is that?
Well, that's it's part fear. It's part it's not fear. I hate that word sometimes. It's anxiousness that how good do I want to be today? Do I want to be, was that good enough? Was that the bar that I set for me when I got up this morning? Or can I push it and be a little bit better? That's a little bit of a Tom Brady program there.
Before
It is.
before we wrap, I want to ask one more question on this sort of sales thread that we're pulling on. So
go. Ask it.
So going back to the Salad Master, I asked earlier about the first 2 weeks, no sales, next 8 weeks, off the charts, and was there some kind of switch that flipped or light bulb moment where you're like, oh, okay, now I got you said
The magic bullet.
it was just, no, I just had to persist.
Well, the persistence paid off because of all those doors I closed. You got to remember, every time that I made a presentation, you always ended with, are there some people that, even though you weren't interested today, Barbara, or there'd be some other people that might be interested, and could I have them as a referral?
Mm-hmm.
So I was built all those missed calls day in and day out. I was building up a portfolio
Right.
of people to call on. And so I had this nice uplog of people. When I had the big Saturday, then all those leads took off for me.
Yeah.
But it had been real easy to quit early on in those first 10 days.
Sure.
Going in every night, going out every day at 9, coming in every night at 8, day in and day out, living in a little tiny apartment, efficiency apartment by myself, thinking, man, what am I doing wrong? My brother dropped by and he'd say, oh, you're doing fine, just keep at it.
Throw you a candy bar and keep going.
Yeah.
So the question I want to ask is, in any relationship, you're trying to build trust, establish trust, particularly in a sales situation, you're trying to build and establish trust. And, here in wealth management, obviously trust is critically important. We talk about trust, kind of in 2 ways. There's sort of structural trust, which is you can trust the the way we built the company, where interests are aligned, and your interests come first, and so there's structural trust. You should be able to get to that place pretty quickly. But then there's relational trust, and we're going to build relational trust over time as I make promises to you and then deliver on those promises consistently. I do what I say I'm going to do. And then over time, we build this relational trust. And then ultimately, you end up with a really nice foundation of trust that's both relational and structural. Can you speak to that in your business and how, when you're flying to India and meeting with somebody for the first time and different culture, how do you build that relational trust?
Your business is a little different than what I did. Your business is on performance, I assume. And I know it is. And so if you had, heaven forbid, 5 really bad years, which can happen,
Mm-hmm.
your personal relationship better be pretty strong.
Right.
Because those people are going to be saying, hey, I'm moving. I've seen it plenty of times. So my business I was a little bit more fortunate because when I flew to India, she had a project, and she needed some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was maybe one of a couple other people she was talking to.
Mm-hmm.
I had to prove to her that my stuff was going to be better and it would be value-oriented. Our whole program was service and value orientation. So when I was done with my presentation, usually I had them, because somebody else was selling ego and high-end products, and they weren't worried about value because they figured, well, they're worth so much money, they don't
care.
Don't need value.
Yeah.
I was always into delivering value. So your point being, I think you have to build your relationships because I didn't tend to have those dip downs, and I was really project oriented. But I get you. I see your point, but I don't know if I have an answer for it.
Jimbo, thank you. Thank you for the model that you've been and will continue to be, you and Philly and your family. You and Alan led a ridiculously incredible company with good people. Retention is such a mark of quality attracts quality, and they want to stay. So thanks for taking time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
sharing and being vulnerable and sharing some stories with us.
Absolutely.
Grateful. Thank you for joining us on Decision Points. Have a great rest of your day.